and however long it takes to do that is fine. So, in a sense, prayer and Bible study are kind of two sides of the same coin. In a sense, in both cases, we seek to hear from God. We seek a word, we seek understanding. So it's in a sense, both are reaching up to God, to talk and to listen. So, having said that, let's listen and look at Exodus 7, 8, 9, and 10. I was talking with someone, Thursday, and I was bragging on you. So you should know, fair warning, your ears were burning Thursday afternoon. I was bragging on the university church, and I just went on about how what a blessing the church is, the elders and the ministers, the staff, you, us, everybody, just bragging on you. I'm grateful to be here again today, Sunday morning class. I love it. Let's look at Exodus 7, but also maybe a bit of 5 and 6. And so, being here, going together through this book is a great joy. I hope it's helpful. We get into these plagues, and we're covering a lot of material. I had to resist the urge to get too detailed. Because if I get behind with the pace that we're going to have to maintain going on, we'll never catch up. If you want to read ahead, the next major section is about chapters 12 through 15. Okay? So if you're thinking ahead, if you're reading ahead, you may just want to do the lesson and then go home this week and read what we studied, all right? Kind of do it that way. That'd be fine too. But about the next section is chapters 12 through 15. And on this handout that I gave you several weeks ago, it seems like the commentators who are looking at Exodus and then trying to reverse engineer an outline based on what they see, it looks like they're seeing the same thing too. So both of the ones that I suggested to you have 12 through 15. In the broadest sense. Also, good morning online. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're looking us up later, good morning. We've been studying Exodus. We're in chapters 7 through 10 today. So in broadest terms, going back into Genesis even. And I kind of beat this drum the last few weeks and emphasized this. In broadest terms, the great doctrinal questions that have been at the forefront of the biblical story are also at the forefront here. Who is God? Who is Israel? An extension of that is, who am I? In His presence, who are we to be? What is God doing in the world? What ought I to do in the world? What ought we to do or to be? In the broadest sense, we're still concerned with that. We're getting to the formation of the people of God in the land that was promised to them, which is where we were promised back in Genesis, even back to Genesis 12 with Abram. If you don't reach that far back, you can reach back to the end of Genesis, the Joseph stories. So the immediate, kind of the broadest kind of doctrinal level or theological level, the broadest level of context there. Kind of focus it down. The little more immediate context that's been governing this narrative so far, we're only 5 chapters in, has been that God has blessed Egypt through Joseph. We go back at the end of Genesis, the great famine, and time and again, Egypt was in crisis. And Joseph and his administrative skill or shrewdness saves the day. God blesses Egypt. Pharaoh, in turn, blesses Joseph. Jacob, several times, blesses Pharaoh. So as a kind of working out of that great theological principle that God is at work in the world to redeem all, and to do that, he will promise one man among all the people, he'll promise one man to become a nation through whom he'll bless all people. There's this kind of interplay between everybody and the one, between the great kind of universal picture and the very particular, just the person we're talking to in the room here. All the people, we choose Abram, will bless all the people through Abram. And at the end of Genesis, we're kind of back on the kind of the geopolitical stage. We have the whole nation being blessed by the descendants of this one man. It's already happening. It's already working itself out. They receive him and bless him. He, in turn, blesses Egypt. Jacob and Joseph, so that's that kind of coming down in the context. That's the immediate past. Until, and it's that phrase in chapter 1, Exodus 1, verse 8. Until the king who doesn't know Joseph comes to power in Egypt, the Pharaoh who knew not Joseph. And like any good narrative will do, we need some conflict to drive the story. Or there's the hero's on a quest, or there's some mystery that we need to solve, or something unknown we need to discover. Something drives the story. Well, this is going to be the driver of the story. The narrative is the Pharaoh who knows not Joseph. We Israelites, well, also we Christians, we readers of this story, we already know the big theological questions. So it won't be too surprising when we see the characters on stage interacting. It's not going to be surprising for us to see or to hear some commentary on the theological importance of the fact that this Pharaoh knows not Joseph, doesn't care a thing about Joseph or his God. Okay, so in other words, it's a disruption of that interplay that goes back to Genesis. God desires to bless all people, and to do that, he'll raise up one man who has no children and will bring him from a solitary man who will die and who will be forgotten into a great nation, and through that one nation, one man to bless all people. And the interplay, the harmony, such as it was. There were some hiccups along the way, but the harmony that we see at the end of Genesis is disrupted. The Pharaoh who doesn't know Joseph looks at this great mass of people and begins to oppress them, to grind them into the dirt, force them into labor, to enrich ourselves because of their labor. It's a very different picture. How will God respond? So that we shouldn't be surprised to see that theme arise in this next section. So the prophet, Moses, does what prophets do. So it's kind of like, what's a prophet? Well, a prophet is what a prophet does. Right? What's a prophet do? I want you to go speak. That's kind of the common job qualification is you need a mouth. I mean, literally, you're the mouthpiece. You're the spokesperson. You deliver the word of the Lord to the people that the Lord wants to hear his word. Sometimes that's Israel, sometimes that's Judah, sometimes that's Egypt, sometimes that's a person. You need a tongue and lips, and you need to go declare. And we saw last week, the prophets, do this number. They kind of put their hand on their forehead and not me, not now, anyone but me. Are you sure? Is there another way? I don't know what to say. There's kind of alarm, fear, excuses. Okay? And last time, God always says, yes, you, yes, now, yes, this is what I want you to say. I know they're hard-headed. I'll make your head harder. Okay? We're gonna do this. We can't do this. Like, don't worry. If it comes down to this, I'll be your forehead. I'll be your mouth. Okay, so the prophet does what prophets do, which is to show up and speak. And not to be too comical, but the prophets kind of speak and then kind of cringe because they know what's going to happen. You speak it and you're like, okay, I think I know how this is going to be received, and if this goes down like I think it will, kind of, okay, what we know, we the readers know, and kind of what Moses knows is Pharaoh is not going to be receptive. This is not, we're already reading this after the fact. Okay? So we have the privilege of knowing things that people in the story itself as it's happening didn't know, but we know. And so Exodus is written for the folks who already know and their children who don't know but are about to be told. So we know how this story ends because we've already been out of Egypt. We've already left. So it's no secret that we are out, okay? Now the people in the moment, they didn't always know how things were going to pan out, but we know how it pans out. And so the story is told from the perspective of having already lived through and experienced it. So from the perspective of having already seen it, we can look back and we can say, his hardened heart begins here. I think that's a helpful way to understand this dynamic of God hardening Pharaoh's heart. I don't think he just kind of zaps him. He says, I need a hard heart and it's going to be yours. And I don't care what you think about it, I need a hard heart. Pharaoh will be the operator of the verbs here enough. He'll harden his own heart. He's got dignity, he's got integrity, he's got free will and choice and agency. We will also see God kind of pushing things along. Like, if you're going to harden your heart, go ahead and do it. Again, not to be too flippant, but when I show up in courses across the way, I also did this when I taught. Professor will have me come in. We need to know how to use the library. Can you tell us how to use the library? And I'll show them how to do something or how to find something or how to look up something. And it's always tied to their assignment, whatever it is. They've got something to produce. Paper, project, poster. They need to stand and give a speech or turn in something or do a tap dance. Whatever they do, they've got to do something. And they need to use the library to do it. And so I'll go through, and I always try to be kind of light. I always tie it to their assignment, and I say, you can do this. You can do this. Some of them, that will reassure the ones who really genuinely don't think they know how to use the library, and there are some who don't. There are some who came from high schools that had great libraries. They already know how this works. They know about databases. If 18-year-old me would have shown up at the library and had to deal with an electronic database, I would not have known what to do. Some days I still don't know what to do. I think, you can do this. I want to try to be reassuring and try to be helpful. You can do this. There's people who can help you. If you don't understand, ask questions, but you can do this. And then I always say, also you have to do this. You can do this. Be encouraged. Also, it's due in November. Chop, chop. Get on it. You have to do this. So, not to be too flippant, my people are going to leave We're going to leave and go into the wilderness and worship after, it's going to take us 3 days to get where we're going. And when we get there, we will offer sacrifices. That's how it's going to happen. And you kind of lean in and as if to say, and that's how it's going to happen. Not, we'll negotiate. It is time for them to leave. We already know how it turns out, is Pharaoh didn't want them to go. How does that go down? How does that happen? What's the sequence of events that get us out? Well, that's where we are in 5 through 10. Pharaoh does not want them to go. Look at chapter, having revealed himself to Moses, Yahweh will kind of reveal himself in a sense through the word to Pharaoh. Look at the end of chapter 5 and 6. Moses comes back, or end of chapter 5, beginning of chapter 6. Moses kind of comes back and says, what have you sent me to do? Why have you caused trouble? This is not, this is not happening the way that I thought it was going to happen. Why did you ever send me? Ever since I went into Pharaoh to speak in your name, in other words, since I went in to do what I was, I went to go prophesy, okay? He's caused trouble, and you haven't rescued your people at all. Okay, we'll see Moses do things like this later on. Why is this? The Lord replied to Moses, now you will see what I will do. Because of a strong hand, he will let them go. He will not listen to words. He will listen to a strong hand. And because of a strong hand, he will drive them out. That's a wonderful inversion of the resistance, I will never let you go, to he's going to drive you out. He's going to go from, I'll never let you leave, never, not once in a million years, to, I can't get rid of you fast enough. Get out. What can I do to help you go? Okay. Chapter 6 moves us forward. And chapter 7 is where the plagues begin. Okay, so if you're looking at chapter 7, it's back to the familiar pattern with prophets. Go and speak. You declare to Pharaoh that he must let the Israelites go. And what we're going to find, and our Pew Bible is pretty good about this, they divide the paragraphs up plague by plague. I had to resist the temptation here to get too detailed. Well, it seems like all of these descriptions of the plagues, well, one, they vary in what the plague is. Okay, obviously, it's a different thing each time. There'll be dialogue here or there each time. The Pharaoh will respond. Sometimes it looks like it's promising. It's, I will worship the Lord now. I relent. And Moses says, I know you. Again, for the sake of those of us who already knew how it happens, the narrator holds our hand and brings us along so we understand. Pharaoh has no intention of letting them go. This is the dog ate my homework excuse. Again, to draw from my experience in education. I promise it'll be okay. The dog ate my homework. No more excuses. No more kind of halfway. You'll relent and let them go or not. And when push comes to shove, he always says, no, you can't go. So in each plague, there's a plague that varies. There's dialogue that varies. Kind of an interplay between the characters. Yahweh, God is a character, Moses is a character. So there's dialogue, there's characters, scenery changes. Obviously the plagues themselves, very dramatic, very vivid, very frightening. I think you could probably see they get worse and worse and worse. I've seen that emphasized. I don't know if you remember hearing sermons or classes how it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. They're all kind of bad, and the death of the firstborn, I think, clearly is the worst, awfulest, scariest. That's the tipping point. Can we rank them? Is it like steps? I don't know we could do that. Maybe we can. Okay. But there's not just it's not like it's just a simple formula. I don't know, have you studied the book of Judges? Each judge story kind of follows a similar cycle. The characters change, the dialogue change. In some sense, they get longer and more developed as you go through the book of Judges, but it's basically the same thing again and again and again and again. And I think the perceptive reader clearly sees that because the language is repetitive time and time and time and again, so that by the time we've done it really twice, we begin to say, wait a minute, it's happening again, and then you get to the third one, like, and again. Okay, we're on to something now. I think the same thing happens here. It's repetitive over and over again. What's the one thing that happens over again that gets emphasized every time? Let's look at these phrases about Pharaoh's heart. Just note them. I don't know if you underline in your Bible, but if you want to underline, this would be a thing to underline. I stopped underlining a long time ago because I would forget why I underlined things. And then it got to be irritating because I thought, well, why did I do that? And then the point was no longer what was my reading, it was what was I thinking when I underlined it. And I decided maybe I should just stop writing notes in my Bible. But I will do things like this occasionally. If there's a structural feature that gets repeated or a word that gets repeated, and if there's not a way to bring that out other than underlining it, maybe I could forget that the thing was there. So if you want to underline or note something, let's look at 7:3. We'll just note them. Just notice that they're there. We're going to go out, and I will harden his heart and multiply my signs and wonders. We are leaving, and I'm looking past all of the events that are about to happen to the end, and what I see at the end is he is going to let them go one way or another. We are coming out, and I have not forgotten my promise. The promise is for all people. And this people, which at one time blessed me, and which at one time was blessed by me, does not now know me, nor do they recognize me. And if I deliver even my prophet to them, they reject it. I will harden his heart, and I will take my people out. It is time to go. I think that's a helpful way to look at it, to kind of think through this, what could be very problematic about God hardening Pharaoh's heart. He says, I know where we're going. We, the readers, already know where we're going because we've already been there. We've already come out. Okay, well, beat that dead horse again. All right, look at 7:3. Look at 7:13. Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he did not listen, as the Lord said. We know how this is going to happen. We, the reader, because we've already been tipped off. The narrator interprets the actions for us. And I'll emphasize that again and explain what I mean. The narrator is not just a neutral observer in the story. The narrator wants us to understand the doctrinal importance or the theological importance. If this were just neutral, I think we would probably say, well, Pharaoh refused, which he did. It's not inaccurate. He did. He refused. It's time to go. No, thank you. A refusal. No, thank you. I think I'd rather have him stay. Now, if you'll just make your way to the door, my secretary will get you a Coke on the way out, and I hope you have a nice day. Thanks for calling. On you go. And back to work. No, it's not just a refusal. Oh, what kind of a refusal? He has hardened his heart. We understand the nature of the refusal. Yes?
I just think it's interesting that God hardened his heart. It wasn't the devil and him.
God says, we're leaving, and if you're going to stand in my way,
It's a different thrust.
So, let's look at the next one. 7 verse 22. The magicians of Egypt did the same thing with their occult practices. So Moses does something and the magicians do something. Pharaoh's heart was hard. He would not listen as the Lord had said. 8 verse 15. So again, in our Pew Bible, you can see after each plague, kind of the bottom line at the end of each plague story or each plague paragraph, 8 verse 15, when Pharaoh saw there was relief, he hardened his heart and would not listen as the Lord had said. 8 verse 19, what's the finger of God, the magician said. We can explain it, okay? But Pharaoh's heart was hard. He would not listen to them as the Lord had said. That's the gnats, or the insects. Then there's flies. Look at 8 verse 32. Pharaoh hardened his heart this time also and did not let the people go. How about the next one? 9 verse 7. We come to find out not a single one of the Israelite livestock is dead, but Pharaoh's heart was hard. So all of this loss on in our fields, but the Israelite, their cattle's fine. His heart was hard. He did not let the people go. 9 verse 12. The Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not listen to them as the Lord had told Moses. 9 verse 34, very end of the chapter. When Pharaoh saw the rain, hail, thunder had ceased, he sinned again and hardened his heart, he and his officials. So Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he did not let the Israelites go, as the Lord had said through Moses. Skip over the column to 10, verse 20. The Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. He did not let the Israelites go. That's after the locust. And then the darkness, 10, verse 27. The Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. He was unwilling to let them go. Pharaoh said to him, "Leave me. Make sure you never see my face again. On the day you see my face, you will die." And again, it's dramatic. It's hard not to bring up Charlton Heston here. As you have said, Moses replied, "I will never see your face again." Okay. Well, we're not going to get into chapter 11 this time. All of this is preparatory for chapter 11. The ultimate plague, the tipping point, the last straw, the final This gets some emphasis that the others don't. Also, this gets some ongoing significance that the others don't. Again, we have already been there. We've already come out of Egypt. We, the first readers of Exodus, whoever we are. In the kingdom of Israel, Judah, years later, we're reading Exodus over and over. We're telling these stories. This is why we do Passover. This is the narrative frame that the Passover event happened in. The reason we do Passover has a meaning to it. It is when God brought our ancestors out. And we're out today. We're not in Egypt. We're in the land that God has promised because of what happened back then. So this story has ongoing significance because every year we remember the Passover. And it's rooted in the last of the plagues on Pharaoh. And so we don't remember the flies every year. So the plagues are the narrative framework, and one of them, when He passed over our houses. And He passed over our houses to bring us out. And we are out. So many years later, while we observe Passover, we Israelites with our families, and we do the whole thing. We retell the story. And so here in Exodus 11:12, we're going to camp out and slow down a bit. Okay? So if you want to read ahead, read on into 11 through 15, which is going to include that extra commentary, explanation, instructions, details about the Passover, which the other plagues don't have. So that typical pattern doesn't repeat in a sense. Well, I guess it repeats, but it's so long. So this last plague has a lot more that it describes. Major takeaways for this section. God has He's not a disinterested kind of third party. He has a side. He takes sides. He is committed to fulfilling His promise. His character is such that He obligates Himself and then carries through with His self-obligation. There's no one greater than God that He can kind of appeal to. So He appeals to Himself when He promises to Abram to make him great, back in Genesis 15:16. And here He makes good. We learn something of the nature of God. We learn something of the character of God. God reveals Himself. I hear my people. I hear their cries. I hear the cries of the people who are in distress, who are oppressed, who are pushed down. They are exploited. I at one time was blessing Egypt, and now this Pharaoh who does not know me is working against my people. And we also know He's working against the greater promise that is to happen. So He will not allow that to continue. That doesn't go on unchecked. So something about the character of God is it may look like things are awfully unclear and out of sorts, and they may well be. I mean, for Israel in Egyptian slavery, it was. That's an understatement. Out of sorts and not the way it ought to be. Absolutely. Because it was. It wasn't just appearances. It just doesn't appear to be hopeless. We're hopeless. What are we going to do? Help. God hears. He listens. And He is faithful to His word. even if it doesn't happen today, even if it doesn't happen tomorrow, it might not happen in my lifetime. I might not see the result of it. Well, I think I think of someone from Nashville. She says, "We'll understand in heaven." Okay, that's it. Very, very simple, very plain, but very profound. That she understands. Yes, we'll understand. So we may not get there today, we may not get there tomorrow, but what the Exodus story conveys to us is God will not forget His word. He will not abandon His word. He will not allow this to go on unchecked. Then the question is not just about Pharaoh's heart, what about our heart? Not too surprising when we get out, the text is really, in our minds, really famous in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 6, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Okay. So the question about the heart is not just kind of what happens with Pharaoh's heart. Good question, valid question, proper question. It's repeated enough for us to pay attention to it. But the question is also for Israel. What about our heart? What about mine? What about yours? So the big theological questions about who is God, the flip side of that is, who am I? Who am I as a creature of God? Who am I in this community of people? Who are we to be? So this is not just kind of, a kind of fairy tale explanation of the past long ago. Stories long ago and far away. This is our past. This is our story. How is it our story? Because someone taught you the faith, and someone taught them, and they learned it from someone, and we go back. And we will go back to these events, some way, shape, or form, however the story winds. This is our history. This is our past. Then the question is put to us too. What about our hearts? Okay, that's enough to think about for another week. I hear voices outside, and it's 9:45. All right. Yes? Pharaoh kept the question is, if God wanted them, why didn't He just bring them out? Why does He keep on hardening Pharaoh's heart? I think the short answer would be, Pharaoh kept refusing. So the word comes, let my people go. And the answer is, no. Pharaoh says, no. Let my people go. But he doesn't let them go. Let my people go. Back to work, now get your own straw. Until finally he relents and means it the last time, says, all of you go. That's how I understand it, is the interplay and the resistance. He finally gets to a point where he says, okay, go. Nope.
I was just thinking God had a lot of patience with that stubborn.
God had a lot of patience. That also tells us something of the character of God. Yes?
I think one reason that there were so many plagues is that God used that to build the faith of the Israelites. If there had been
Yeah.
just one they would have thought, well, that sort of thing happens. For example, not this year, but last year, I had a grasshopper plague at my house. And my notion was, well, that just happens. But in the time to come, when the Israelites complain, the first thing God tells them is, remember that I brought you out of Egypt. And that is said over and
That's
over
right.
and over.
That's right.
If there had been just one, they probably would not have really worried about it too much. They would have said, yeah, well, maybe, but
Sure.
never mind.
Sure. Yeah, that's helpful. So, yeah, I think what the upshot of her comment is the plagues are also a sign for Israel. Not just a manifestation or a judgment on Pharaoh, but a sign for the sake of Israel. Very helpful. Very helpful. Okay. We'll see you next week.